Hey, what's up, folks? James from Junkyard Fox. Thank you so much for joining us. And today we have ourselves a knife review. And this is easily one of the most beautiful knives that I have ever seen in my life. I'm talking about the Victorinox Rangerwood 55 Swiss Army knife. Now, it is no secret that I happen to be quite a fan of Swiss Army knives. I love their utility, I love their designs, I love their history, but this one just elevates it even further with these beautiful walnut scales, as well as a larger locking blade. Now, I don't have the exact specs on how long it is. We don't have any signal up here. I want to say it's about 4 inches, possibly a little bit longer than that. I'll annotate it below. But it is definitely a larger, heftier Swiss Army knife than what we're used to normally. And I consider this thing to be the perfect camping knife. Now, that's what we're doing up here. We're camping up in the mountains of New Mexico, enjoying the early autumn, enjoying the cool evenings, the changing colors. And we're putting this guy to work, and you're coming along with us. All right, so let's take a look at the overall length when this thing is closed. It is about 5 inches. The width is a little bit over half an inch. Open up that blade. It's about 4 inches, and it is about 9 inches long in total, the overall length. Okay, so let's talk about this blade for now. This is a rather large blade for a Swiss Army knife. I mean, this entire Swiss Army knife is large for a Swiss Army knife. You know, when you normally think of Swiss Army knives, you think of the classic, the Farmer, you know, the Victorinox A-locks. Those are all about half the length of this and not even close to the width of this. So this thing's quite robust, quite large, especially this blade that's 4 inches long, flat grind with a stainless type steel. I will say I actually really enjoy the steel on Swiss Army knives. And yeah, because of this length, I can definitely see this being great for the campsite, you know, whether you're chopping veggies and, you know, meat, you're cutting cordage, you're whittling, or even, you know, you're fishing and you caught yourself a couple of trout. I could definitely see this thing, you know, gutting some trout. Now, how to close it, it's a liner lock, which is a rarity with the Swiss Army knives. They tend to kind of be non-locking, but it's a liner lock. So you click down on this button and see if you can see it move down here. There we go. And close this thing right up. Now let's talk about the other tools. The other very impressive tool that it has is this really big double cut wood saw. I mean, this thing is large. It's 4 inches, I want to say, as long as the blade is. Now, that's probably the biggest saw I've seen on a Swiss Army knife. Let me bring its smaller relative. There we go. The Victorinox one-handed trekker. Look how much just daintier and thinner that is. Now let's bring in a Leatherman. Now this is the Leatherman Blast, my favorite multi-tool when it comes to Leatherman. Once again, not even close. This thing is just gonna win when it comes to woodworking and sawing and all that. All right, other tools. There's a corkscrew. You know, them Europeans love their wine. There is a reamer or a hole puncher, whatever you want to call it. Other than that, we have a bottle opener, a flathead screwdriver right here. Let's close that up. And then back here, we have a can opener with a smaller flathead screwdriver. And once again, because we're talking about a can opener, bottle opener, corkscrew, knife, the saw, I definitely think this thing is going to be great for camping. If you're going to be out camping or practicing your wilderness skills, your woodcraft skills, or even staying out in a cabin, I could definitely see this being just very handy for that. So enough talk, let's put this to work. Okay, so we still have a couple hours before sunset. We are out of firewood, so it's time to fill up my bag. And as you can see, we found some good pieces of wood. They just need to be broken down to be more manageable to carry back to camp. So the first tool to test out, of course, is gonna be that gnarly saw. Oh. So our fire is getting nice and hot, so we have a nice hot bed of embers to cook up our dinner. And for today's menu, we're going to be cooking up some calabacitas. For those of you who don't know, calabacitas, in case you don't live in the American Southwest like Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, the best way I could describe it is squash and cheese stew. I have a video a couple months back that I posted, and I go step by step on my personal recipe when out camping. The only difference from that video to now is we will be adding some meat. We're going to be adding some pork sausage from the boar that we hunted earlier this year. So as of right now, we got a lot of veggies here that we got to slice up, chop up. And of course, this blade right here is going to be able to handle that. So let's get to it. So as you saw, this blade sliced beautifully. This thing, I'm not sure what's the thickness of it. I want to say it's 3/32 or at least close to that. And that would make a lot of sense why I love this knife so much, because that's my favorite thickness on a blade. I like a very thin, slicey blade. And you saw this go through squash, green chili, onions, garlic, tomatoes, jalapeno, and it did beautifully. So let's go ahead and put this away and test out the next item. I got a little confused there. Also, if you pay attention in the background, you may hear the bugling of an elk. So they're starting to become active right now. It sounds so beautiful. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started with the can opener. We're going to open a can of corn for our stew. And normally I could do this much easier, but we were like a little bit lopsided because we're on the side of a mountain. So the can's not on even ground. That's not the fault of the blade. I'm sorry, of the can opener. It's just awkward position. But I mean, either ways, it takes care of business. I hope you guys heard that. I hope that's coming through camera in the background. Okay, so we have the stew simmering. And now here is the bore. This is a ground bore from a recent hunt that we did a few months back. We just browned it out over a pan. Make sure it's nice and cooked slightly. It doesn't have to be fully cooked because it's still going to be thrown in here. Oh, this is going to be so good. And we're going to let this simmer for about 40 minutes. Try out that bottle opener. Oh yeah. I wonder if you guys can hear the elk off in the distance. They sound really cool. Nice. Pour yourself a cup, brother. All right. Alright, so it's dinner time. Okay, now for the taste test. Really good stuff. Really hearty. Oh man. Squash, corn, wild boar, 2 types of cheese, green chili, onion, garlic, tomatoes, jalapenos. Hot damn. So it's the next morning, folks. I'm just enjoying my morning coffee. And final thoughts on the Victorinox Rangerwood 55. Like I said, I think this would make a superb camping knife. So when you're outdoors, you know, for an extended period of time, when you're backpacking or staying out in a cabin, something like that, this has all the tools necessary, and they're just better tools in general, designed for the outdoors. So let's just talk about the blade in general. The fact that it's a locking blade and it's pretty long, pretty large, I mean, I think that just outperforms a lot of the multi-tools we see out there. For example, let's compare it to the Victorinox one-handed trekker. Now, the one-handed trekker, I will admit, is my favorite multi-tool of all time, but I do mean that in a sense of everyday carry in the city. You know, when you're out in the city, I have, you know, a semi-serrated chisel grind blade here. Great for cutting boxes and rope and, you know, cutting through, you know, mail packages and all that. However, when it comes to slicing veggies, feather sticking, even if I have to, like, say, once again, like a gut of fish or something, I'm going to take this 10 out of 10 times, easily. Now let's compare it to, once again, the Leatherman. The Leatherman Blast. Look at these blades. I mean, which one would you choose if you are going to be outdoors? Once again, the Leatherman is great, you know, for the city. If you're, you know, a handyman, a mechanic, construction worker, you know, you're going to want to use pliers. They're going to be far more useful than a corkscrew. I understand that. But once again, being outdoors, this large blade is just outstanding. And not only that, not only the blade itself, but as you saw earlier, this large saw is just going to be able to take down pieces of wood much better, much faster, much more efficient. Now, is this going to be taking the place of my folding saw like my Baco? Of course not, but it's a great backup, and that's what I see this blade being. You know, the blade itself is not going to be taking the place of my fixed blade, my snake eater on my belt, but it's a good secondary knife, a good companion blade, as well as this is a good companion saw. If your saw is somewhere else, you lend it to your buddy, or it's elsewhere, and you have this, it's going to be really useful. And then, of course, the bottle opener. Now, while we're on the bottle opener, let's talk about why we didn't make a fire with this yesterday. Now, a lot of Swiss Army knife owners, they'll tell you that they can strike a ferro rod with the back of their saw, whether they have the one-handed tracker or this one. A lot of people say, you know, it's a flat spine, you can strike it, and that's true. But I do got to warn you that I've cut myself before. You know, because it's a non-locking tool, be careful. You can strike it, but it can close on you with pressure. So you can, it's not shooting that many sparks because I'm not putting so much pressure because I don't want it to close on me. It can be done, but I would not recommend it. Let me show you guys something that I did a long time ago. So here's the bottle opener, essentially the same design as the one on the Rangerwood. What I do is I file this corner right here so it has a flat 90-degree spine. And I mean, I'm not going to run the risk of, you know, hurting myself with the bottle opener. And that one, it allows you to shoot much stronger, much more securely. So this one doesn't have that. I didn't file the spine because this one's not personally mine. This one's Cuervo Negro's. I used to own one for a couple of years and I ended up selling it and I regretted it. As soon as I sold it, I regretted it. But yeah, what I had in mind is, once again, this was filed, and you can use that to strike a ferro rod. A little hack to make your tool even more useful. But yeah, so yesterday, I just didn't want to risk doing the whole saw thing. I actually don't find that very safe. Like I said, one time it closed on me and it cut me years ago, so I never forgot. So that's about our conclusion of our review of the Victorinox Rangerwood 55. If you couldn't tell, I happen to be a tremendous fan of this blade. Now, is this the ultimate multi-tool for everyday carry out in the city? Of course not. You're going to want something more pragmatic, something with pliers and stuff like that. However, if you're out camping like we are, or you're out on an extended backpacking trip, a hunting trip, anything that's going to take a little bit longer out in the woods, I think this is going to be a very welcome addition. This multi-tool not only has these great tools useful for being out here, but I mean, guys, I really love these walnut scales. I think this just elevates this multi-tool, you know, just gives it this rustic charm, this elegance. You know, and when you think about multi-tools, you tend to think more about utilitarianism than elegance. But this one just adds just that little extra that I think makes it really just handsome. Like I said, I happen to love it. Not only are we using it in this camping trip, we even used it a couple weeks ago. If you saw our chilaquiles video, our camp cooking recipe, we used it for that camping trip as well. I happen to be a tremendous fan of this blade. Okay, so that's about it for us, guys. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Comment down below if you have any questions or comments. And also down below in our description box, you'll see the link to our Amazon store. So if you're interested in purchasing this beauty right here, and keep in mind the holidays are just around the corner, you get yourself a really awesome multi-tool, and we get a couple cents thrown our way so we can keep getting out here, practicing skills, having adventures, and sharing that all with you. So, as always, thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Now go outside and get your boots dirty.